Welcome back, duelists, and I hope you have your tinfoil hats as well as a six-pack of Coca-Cola because it's time for a conspiracy video. Now, we've actually been seeing a lot of interesting decisions as well as movement from Konami's side of things this past year, and that is making a lot of players think that we're expecting to see huge announcement or even changes to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Coming in the year 2024. So in today's video, we're going to be going over exactly what it is that Konami is doing that is piquing the interest of the players, as well as what we know and think is going to be coming to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the year of 2024. So let's get right into the video. Now, the first point of interest, and a little bit more of an obvious one, is that this year is the 25th anniversary for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, and Konami has not been shy about that. It has literally been placed on all their products all year, and we even have the quarter century secret rare being a rarity that they have been bumping out all year long to players. And honestly, this is just the beginning. We've been seeing tons of reprints, and even we've seen the inclusion of the TCG in the reprint set rarity collection, and this is actually what piques a ton of interest right here. So normally Konami actually slowly drips out their chase cards in high-end rarities, rather that be collector rare out of reprint sets or ultimate rares out of their OTS sets. But now we've actually seen that since the TCG was included with this rarity collection, a ton of meta staple cards that would normally be considered chase cards in future sets have all been put under one ceiling in the rarity collection. And this has essentially allowed all the players to go out and get all these chase cards in any of the rarities that they've wanted, thus reducing the amount of chase cards that Konami has in the future to put in these sets. And that is actually what spurs the interest in rarity collection being included in the TCG. And now, given that all these chase cards have essentially been taken out of the optional card pool for future sets, this leads us to our second point, that Konami needs new chase cards. In other words, power creep. Now, if you are in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! For any amount of time, you will know Konami is not shy to the idea of power creep in their game. Whether it's from older formats with Dark Arm Dragons, Stardust Dragons, or even newer formats with things like Access Code, Appaloosa, we have seen that power creep is a real thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! One day a card will be a staple and played at 3 in every deck, and the next, you won't even want to tech it. But I do believe power creep is definitely the guaranteed thing we're going to be seeing moving into the year 2024. And honestly, we've already seen the beginning stages. Whether it's the Diabell Star package, SP Little Knight, or even again, Typhon. And again, no matter which example you go with, we're actually seeing just how powerful these newer era cards really can be. And another form of power creep we're actually seeing is taking the form of going second in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And as we know, going first has always been just a huge advantage, especially in older formats. But we're seeing Konami actually has this topic under a microscope, and they're just making sure they're buffing going second going into the future. And again, whether that's cards like Typhon, Triple Tactics Thrust, Evenly Match, or Talents, Konami has definitely been buffing the going second aspect of the game. And that actually will lead us into our next point, and that is the ban list. Now, this most recent ban list actually raised a bunch of interest because this is clearly Konami shaping the future of their game. We saw them hit a bunch of floodgates, they buffed going second variants of the game with Mind Control to 3, Snatch Shield to 1, Pankratops to 1, and then we also saw them bring a bunch of cards off the list altogether. So this ban list is making waves, and even in the OCG, they unbanned Heavy Storm. That is huge. Again, we're seeing that this ban list was key to the shaping of the formats that Konami definitely wants to be going forward. And this kind of leads players to wonder, well, with Rivalry, Tikaboo banned, are we actually going to be seeing a buff to some decks like Runic or Labyrinth in the future. We know Labyrinth actually has a monster on one of their cards that still has not yet been revealed. And will they be kind of giving some buffs to these control variant decks, given that they actually have been hitting them a little bit on the list? And I do believe Konami is going to kind of change the way we see control variants in Yu-Gi-Oh! Keep it a little bit away from the Floodgate variants. Keep it away from the flipping of the one continuous trap card. So this will actually be interesting to see how Konami actually sets up the control variants going into the future. But kind of keeping in line with that ban list, the thing that is most interesting to me on this ban list is the last time we saw a hit to Floodgates this hard was Kaiser Coliseum. And when Kaiser Coliseum got banned, a lot of players were scratching their head and wondering, well, why did this just happen? This card was not mained a bunch. It was in like Bujin Lock, Ophion Control, things like that nature that were actually very quickly out of the metagame. So a lot of players, including myself, were actually theorizing that this was a hit into the future because Konami was about to release something big. And then, the coming year after that, links were announced. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get a new summoning mechanic, although a lot of players have been speculating that. I'm saying that whether it's new archetypes, new sets, new ways to kind of bring out all your monsters, I think Konami, given with the power creep aspect of the game, are getting rid of cards like There Can Be Only One, Rivalry, and Gozen that would normally lock out the newer cards that would progress their meta game. And that kind of brings me to my next point, kind of following the trend of the ban list. You know, I just kind of add my shades here. You can totally trust me with these, you know. You guys think we're so special, don't you? You just think that the TCG is exempt to all the balancing that Konami does around this game. Well, let me tell you something. We're going to be getting Max C. Now, I know. Vengeful just wants to watch the world burn. And I kind of wanted to go to the Shadow Realm a little bit, okay? That seems like fun. But we are going to be seeing Max C in the TCG. You get ready. Now, why would we see Max C come to the TCG when everyone just hates it? Now, let's remind ourselves, Konami completely balances the game around this card. So it should be a surprise to no one that they would suggest it coming back to the TCG just so they know our format is easier to balance. Then, on top of that, we did mention that Konami has been fighting tooth and nail to get going second decks a little bit more of a kick in their step. And Max C is the perfect going second card. Now, I know it is amazing when you go first and have a Max C. But let's be honest, it's a lot more hurtful to going first decks than helpful. The next point, and again, one players probably don't want to hear, is it forces the counterplate. If you don't want that Max C hitting you, you are then forced to play outs to it. Rather that be cross out, called by the grave, or even things like, you know, Baguska, like we kind of saw that Tier Laments was doing, where if anything happened, they could just overlay into a Baguska and sit on it, not allow their opponents to be drawing extra cards. And it kind of does, and forces players to have that contingency plan. All right? And that is good for the game, whether people want to admit that or not. Contingency plans are healthy for the game. Okay? Now, my third point, and the one I've been making in all my videos up until now when I mention Max C, is it didn't get that sweet reprint yet. Oh yeah. Yeah, you remember that, don't you? It was in the structure deck and it got taken out. Then it was in the rarity collection and then it wasn't. Ooh, it's going to be spicy because they're going to resell us Max C. And they're going to make sure we pay big for it. Oh, yes, they will. And for the deniers out there, if you think Konami would more likely hit Max C in Master Duel as well as OCG than Unlimited in TCG, you're crazier than I am. So Max C coming to 3 in the TCG is definitely something big coming to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I know I got the hater shades on, but I'm going to ask for a little bit of love right now. Whether you love the content, hate the content, as long as you're here watching the content, please hit that sub button, share with your friends, and as always, comment some stuff you want to be seeing in the video. But let's get back to the content. Now again, we're seeing all this love for the nostalgia. It's the 25th anniversary of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, this is leading a lot of players to believe we're expecting to see either an announcement of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie or a new show, specifically based in the Duel Monsters era. Now, a lot of players, including myself, have been very much hyped about this idea. We would love to see either a new show or a movie with our old cast of characters. And then there's the other side of the community that definitely is not too keen on the idea or doesn't think it will happen at all. But why I do hold a little hope in my heart for it is not only is it the 25th anniversary, it's the Year of the Dragon, which, I mean, as we know, man, Kaiba loves his dragons. But on top of that, we have been seeing all releases for nostalgic cards, old hero archetypes, and most importantly, we've been seeing their voice actors have been extremely active, whether it's product placement or just kind of doing skits for Yu-Gi-Oh! Overall. Their voice actors have been active in the game this last year, and that leads a lot of players to believe they might just be back on Konami's payroll. And again, we've actually kind of covered this a little bit more in a longer form content, so if you're interested in that, do check that out. But again, with the release of a new type being Illusion, and all the Illusions essentially being retrained versions of Yami Yugi's monsters, it is not a surprise that a lot of players are hoping to be seeing a nostalgic reboot of either a movie or the show. The whole idea of me making this video is it seems like we've almost entered a new era of the game without Konami officially announcing it yet. It's like we're there without them telling us. But when we see this drastic of change to Yu-Gi-Oh!, normally it's followed by or led by a master rule. Now, a lot of players have been speculating for quite some time that we are due, if not overdue, for a new master rule in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I do believe if we do get a new master rule, it will not be as game warping as the prior ones that restricted or unrestricted the summoning mechanics. But given that we see Konami really trying to help going second decks out, I would not be surprised if a master rule would come into effect that would basically help going second decks without warping the game. I've always been an advocate of them starting with their 6th card instead of drawing it for their turn. That makes sure they have some hand traps available to them when the opponents starting off the combos, as well as potentially a new rule to the timer regulation. As we know, the end of time procedures have actually been a huge topic of debate ever since they were changed, and even now as more and more players watch bigger events, YCSs, nationals, things of that degree, it is very disheartening to see some of the end of time procedures just kind of go down the way they do, and honestly really kind of kills the vibe overall. And now, since Konami has stated that they are trying to get more players into the game and staying in the game, it would not surprise me if they focus a little bit more on end of time kind of procedures to make it a little bit more smooth and friendly for players in the game and those watching at home. And guys, whether it's a new master rule, max C, a new ban list, or just simple power creep, I think a lot of players are in agreement. There are big changes coming to the game in the year 2024. But as always, guys, if you got anything from the video, do hit that subscribe button. If I may have missed any topics you want to elaborate on or go further to, definitely comment them down below. And as always, share the video with your friends. And again, we do have longer form contents going over all the potentials of a new master rule, as well as ideas for a new movie flashing above, so do check them out. So most importantly, guys, make sure you are prepared for the huge changes coming to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And as always, stay safe, have a good night, and suck it, nerds.